To everyone here in Salamanca and those who are watching us online.
If you want.
Oh, sorry.
No problem. Now we have the last roundtable of the day. How to create a friendly ecosystem for startups and regions powered by Agri-Food Lithuania. And I ask a big applause for his moderator, Giedrius Leskaukas, Head of Communication, Agri-Food Lithuania.
Thank you for that introduction. Again, good evening to everyone. As you hear, my name is Giedrius Leskaukas. I'm a Head of Communication at Agri-Food Lithuania, DIH. Today I'm happy to present a very important topic which is essential for the future of every European country. Our main question today is how to create a startup-friendly ecosystem in regions. The importance of this topic becomes even bigger if we take into consideration the fact that the European Commission has announced the Startup Village initiative. We'll talk about these and some other important questions with our tonight's special guests. Yes, let me introduce our panelist. Is Kristina Šermukšnytė-Lešiūnienė, Director of Agri-Food Lithuania DIH. Hello, Kristina. Juliet Bray, Accelerator Program Manager of Aid Food. Good evening.
Good evening.
And Fiona Whelan, Director of Educational and Skills at Abodu.
Good evening.
So, Aid Food is the biggest organization in Europe which works to support the ecosystem of agri-food startups in Europe and has many programs to accelerate the development. And today, as you hear, one of our guests is Aid Food representative, Julian Bray, who is responsible for startups accelerators. Julian, is it realistic to make region a friendly place to create and develop startups?
So I work for the IT Food, where we have an accelerator which is in Bilbao. So we hold our accelerator program in the city of Bilbao, which is in the north of Spain, in the Basque Country. Looking at rural areas, I think what is important is the long-term impact that this can have within the local communities, but also making sure that when you do create these startup villages or this ecosystem for startups, you're really ensuring that you're meeting their needs as well as the needs of the local communities to make sure there's a kind of harmonious co-living aspect. From a startup perspective, having worked with startups, when it depends on the level of their development. So if they're very much early stage, it is more interesting for them to be in cities where there's already, and this will depend on the city. Usually they choose where there's a good investment network, a good investment community, where there are other startups in the same sector and companies also in the same sector. So they will look at these cities for those reasons. So I think that's really important to identify that and making sure the needs are well identified.
Kristina, you're like a godmother of implementation of the Startup Village idea in Lithuania. And I would like to hear your opinion. What do you think? Is it realistic to attract startups to rural areas?
Okay, I would start from the beginning. We all know that the upcoming funding program for the upcoming years are exceptionally looking at the regions. And we have a depopulation problem, huge problem in the whole Europe. It's applicable for every member state. So when we talk what we can do to attract people back, of course there is official research which says that to get more people into the regions, we need to turn into youth or bring women back. So how can we do? I think startups, accelerating startups or encouraging startups and creating friendly ecosystems for the startups, this is one of the best ideas what we can be developing in bringing back people into the regions. But it is not that easy. It is very easy to say or draw plans, but first of all we need to think about infrastructures. And I heard today there were lots of talk, for example, how businesses are encouraging or supporting Startup Village, for example, how it could be implemented into the regions. So first of all comes the infrastructure. Then we probably need to encourage and find the reasons why those young people, or not even young people, we're talking about all the ages, would like to go. What kind of, what they can find, what an extra value actually. And by the end of the day, I think people, this is the most important factor that makes it. We can build different buildings, we can build co-working spaces, but if we don't have any people there, then there is no point. So.
Thank you, Christina. And Fiona, do you agree or do you have our opinion?
I'm actually going to give a slightly different opinion. So Abodu as a company was set up in a very small village in the southeast of the country in a small area of Wexford. And it started with a laptop and an idea. So that was our founder, Vanessa, who was here earlier on at the previous roundtable. She had the idea of setting up a new company. She was living in Wexford. There wasn't great connectivity, but she found a co-working space. She used that then for her connectivity, and she reached out to people not necessarily in the area, but the business grew 100% remotely. The staff of Abodu have always worked 100% remotely. So even though the business started in Wexford, I'm based in Dublin. Our tech team are now currently based on the west coast of the US. Our data team are based in India. We also have a team of people working in the Philippines and also in London. So a business can still start in any location so long as there's really good connectivity. They don't have to necessarily have the people on the ground there to start, but as they grow, then they can start giving something back to the region and actually look to employ people within the region then if they spot a gap. But I do think to get a business up and running, you don't necessarily need the staff on the ground to succeed, that there are other opportunities. And as I was explaining to Juliet earlier, I've never met my tech team and I've never met my data team, and I work with them every single day. And we've been able to create a very successful business through working 100% remotely. So it is definitely an opportunity that you create some degree of success before then you look at what are the opportunities for me to give back to the region, and can I help them to bring people back. And often success breeds success. So once people see the success of a business in a region, they think, well, hang on, maybe I could relocate here and see some success. Another thing then, as I explained to Juliet, we have a system in Ireland whereby there are local enterprise offices set up in each of the counties. So even if you're in a very rural part of the country, you have access to your local enterprise office. And they provide services from training, advice, networking opportunities, everything that's required in order to get a business up and running. And again, they're able to help you with sourcing talent. And sometimes the talent is sourced in the region, sometimes the talent is sourced outside. But the answers are always there through the support provided by the local enterprise office. And I think that's a really great model that people can learn from as well, other regions and other countries, that sometimes all you need is to provide the opportunity and the support that people need. And as I said, success will breed success.
Thank you, Julian. What should we do as an actor of a startup ecosystem to make the person who is creating a startup to choose a rural area instead of a big city? For example, today we are in Salamanca. I want to start a startup in Salamanca or not in Madrid. Why I should?
Well, I mean, if the startup, well, I'm thinking from working with entrepreneurs, they would be choosing very much where they have a good network of investors, corporations that they can collaborate. They'll be very much looking into this. In terms of going then rural, I think obviously the connectivity, I think these enterprise offices are crucial because you will go where there is support rather than being isolated. So I think the whole connectivity approach is extremely important. And then there's the network of having a local infrastructure, schools, making it beneficial for a family to relocate. And transport is also important, being well connected to be able to get to an airport, train systems, etc.
Okay, let's talk about advantage. Christina, what advantage can rural areas offer young professional compared to big cities?
Advantages. Well, I would agree with Juliet. First of all, we need to talk, to be honest, infrastructure, so connectivity, mobility, other services like social services, education for kids, kindergartens and everything. And I think we kind of have right now very strange situation when we face with the population and schools are closing, hospitals, for example, in rural areas are closing. But then we need kind of to reopen that. So this is a tough question. So what comes first, services or people, or vice versa, how we do it? But still I would come back that probably overall the thinking that living in the rural area should become a privilege, a luxury. You know, because right now, there is, especially for the young people, it's usually that you go to the city, then it's kind of, you know, it's good to be there. I think the face or the prestige of the thinking should be changing in the society. For us, for the leaders, experts, we need to show, we must show that it can be very innovative, it can be a luxury. And living in the rural area, that's where you get clean weather, that's where you stay out of different diseases, and actually you're helping also for the climate change. So first of all, I think we could be talking about the changing face overall of it for the rural areas, the opinion, the social opinion about it. Other things, I think we should be also talking that when we talk about attracting startups into the regions, regions could be concentrating on what they have the best. For example, some regions, they have agri-food. Some regions, they might be having some factor in the automotive. That means that already there is a strong business there, so they can support actually the ecosystem of the startups. And for the startups, it's a huge value, for example, not only to move with the family, but have the opportunity to test, to get the expert's opinion, to test their ideas, to test their products or services, what they're creating, what they're providing. So I think it would be very smart to use this opportunity for different regions.
Thank you. Fiona, what do you think is young people? Do you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I really like the comment that Christina just made about it being a privilege to live in a rural area, and I think one of the starting points for us should be to start changing the narrative. Right now, people often see it as a negative because they look at what's not there rather than exactly what's there. So changing the narrative, I think, will be really important, so people are seeing it from a very positive perspective. In terms of other advantages, I think for a lot of startups locating in large cities, even though it has the transport and the networking opportunities, often it's cost prohibitive. You often have a very limited budget when you're starting out, so locating in a more rural location may be actually more advantageous in terms of you don't have huge outgoings. Also in terms, as I said, your staff don't have to be located in the region, you know, to start off, but what you can look at is identify what skills do exist within the location and then look to employ people there. Again, Christina touched on a key point. We have areas within Ireland that focus on particular sectors. So the west of Ireland is very strong within medtech, but 10 years ago that wasn't the case, but they focus on success in one particular area. We have in Cork, for example, there's huge success, a number of very large pharma companies. And again, they're located in a lot of rural areas within Cork, but those rural areas have grown because industry has had the faith to relocate there. So rather than trying to be successful and be everything to everybody, I think if you identify a particular opportunity, you grow that opportunity, and then success breeds further success for the region. But I think it's, again, if we can change that narrative and show all of the positive aspects for organisations to start their companies within rural regions, I think we'll see a lot more success.
The quality of education is a common problem in regions, as you said, and there is often a prevailing opinion in society that children must achieve a good academic results, and only then will they achieve a great results in their life. But is our education system capable of recognizing talents needed for developing businesses? If not, how can we improve the situation? Maybe Julian, can you share your experience?
So improving the education system for children to be able to, can you repeat the question exactly?
To improve the system, how to recognize the talents of creating business.
Of?
To creating business.
Create new businesses.
Yeah.
But in terms from an education to the children, or?
Yeah, in the school.
In the schools, okay. Well, I think every country has their education kind of curriculum and kind of policies towards that. I mean, with EIT Food, I can just give some examples of how EIT Food is supporting in education, but that's more at a university level. It's not at a primary or secondary school level. It's at the university level, and what EIT Food is doing is supporting the curriculums of universities to incorporate more everything that's related to the agriculture and food innovation space. So where they're working with the universities is supporting them with the education program, and also bringing together research entities and corporations to also collaborate together in developing a curriculum that will be useful for when the students graduate in terms of being more employable and up to date with specific skills needed in those sectors. So they'll be looking more at the science and food technology area.
Fiona, I saw you wanted to.
Yeah, well, what we've seen over the last number of years through the work we've been doing with a lot of the European universities is that there's been a much closer collaboration between education and industry. Before, they used to operate very much in isolation, but now they see the benefit of actually working together. We've conducted a skills gap analysis with a number of large universities where we analyse the curriculum of each of the programs they offer, and we map it against the skills required by particular industries for graduates, and we identify the gaps that exist, which allows the educational institutions to create curriculum that is future-proofed and that they know they're delivering and creating the skills environment for their graduates, so that when they finish, that they actually are ready and available for employers, and employers know that they have graduates with exactly the right skills. We've seen a very strong shift in the thought process with a lot of employers. Previously, they were looking for graduates with very high caliber academic qualifications. Now it's skills first, academic prowess, slightly behind. Because actually what they found is having somebody who is academically brilliant but practically less so is of very little benefit. If they can get somebody who's highly skilled but is also qualified but maybe not as first in the class, that actually is going to deliver a much greater benefit to them. We've also seen as well, which is a challenge to the traditional institutions, is the growth in online education options. So people are able to upskill themselves from their bedroom. So we've seen the likes of the HubSpot Academy, we've seen all of the programs available through Google. So people are able to develop their skill set at a fraction of the cost and in a much shorter time frame, which has kind of changed the whole dynamic in terms of not having people with particular skill sets. Because if the skill set is lacking, you can create an environment that enables those people to upskill very, very quickly. And we've seen that through the pandemic, people had more time in their hands and they were upskilling at a much higher rate. The challenge then was for employers to recognize the new skills that their employees had. So another project that we've worked on with Abodu is to create a skills audit within organizations, so they understand the skills that exist before they start looking for talent elsewhere, is to understand the skills that already exist within the organization. And just because somebody is working in maybe an administrative role doesn't mean they don't have skills in digital marketing or sustainability. It's just that the organization hasn't yet recognized them.
Yeah. Christina, you mentioned that living in rural areas, countryside, can be luxury. Young people ready to think that living in countryside is actually a luxury thing.
Well, yeah. We can elaborate a lot on that kind of question, but if a little bit going about our topic directly on the startups and how to have those in regions and the rural areas, I was thinking right now we can find so many initiatives, for example, digital innovation hubs, clusters, other initiatives going on. So I think it is very crucial for all of us to unite and have cross-sectorial, cross-initiative collaboration. In that case, we can achieve much more. Even for me, I can imagine it would be very nice to have in the regions regional innovation hubs. So maybe the same digital innovation hubs could be expanding their services into innovation, regional innovation hubs or something similar. So I would like to come back. Like Fiona said before, it's very crucial to get consultancy expertise on the right time and on the right topics. So it could be a lot of made out of already those who are existing, working. And for example, clusters, I think it's a huge opportunity. Clusters are usually located in regions. They're based on regionality and they're big. There is a huge community. So for them, within them to have a startup ecosystem, I think it's also beneficial and could be looked at.
Thank you. We had a conference with an incredible number of startups today, so it would be worth talking about the exceptional hackathon, which is patronized by the European Commissioner, Maria Gabriel, in October 21st, 23rd. And Agri-Food Lithuania DIH is organizing the first startup village hackathon in Europe. Where actually participants from all over the Europe will seek to create and propose the most attractive vision for selected rural areas, rural regions to become an attractive place to create, dream, work, live. There are many possible strategies to make it a region attractive to startups, as you mentioned today. It can be an excellent infrastructure for young people, orientation to businesses with a very different profiles, or targeted orientation to only one sector, as Christina said. If you were the mentors of this hackathon, in which direction would you advise the teams to move when creating a vision for the region and attracting startups?
Well, I start. I think one of the dangers with something like this is making assumptions, that we don't often ask the people who are there or who've seen success, or ask the people why they haven't or why they moved away. And there's probably great data sources there that allow us to really understand where the gaps exist and what needs to change. I think there's also some really great initiatives that are currently happening Europe-wide, such as the Junior Entrepreneurship Programme, which actually fosters entrepreneurship at a younger age and enabling 16, 17-year-olds to really understand how you would start a business and how you could overcome the potential barriers that exist. So I think for a lot of cases, it's a case of joining the dots and using the data that you have at hand to really understand what's possible, what's not possible, and using that to create your vision for success. But there's so many great opportunities, and I don't think we've really seen a better opportunity to look and promote rural regeneration than we're at the moment. So.
Yeah, and I'd just also like to add, I mean, with these rural regions, I think we mustn't forget the agricultural side to these regions. And it'd be sad if we saw these regions just become urban areas and that they're just kind of like becoming kind of the outskirts of cities. So what's really important when this is being developed, that the rural authenticity it's retained, the agriculture, farming, local products, etc. So I think really having this kind of harmonious approach, and as Fiona said, it's totally understanding what are the needs of those that will be that are looking to move out, and making sure that this is a kind of understanding why they want to live outside cities, what are they looking for, and making sure this is maintained, but not just having lots of skyscraper buildings and cement blocks and pools, etc. I think it's really got to do it in sync with nature, because I think that's really important.
I would just add, I think it's very important also to get the governmental support, regional governmental support. Otherwise, also just coming from the businesses or just from the goodwills, good thoughts, it will be almost impossible to implement something like this. Like, for example, in Lithuania, I know for the upcoming period, we are concentrating a lot on the smart villages. And so we got this initiative now, Startup Villages, that's, and I hope two of those initiatives, they're a little bit different, quite different. We talk about different things, but they could be easily combined, and we already talked with the governmental representatives, so I'm very happy on that if also there is a support from regional government municipalities, then I think that such initiatives would also move forward very well.
Well, what do you think when Startup Village will become a reality? In 2025, for example, 2030?
I always say now.
Now.
The best time is now. So just if we know what we want, this is probably the main thing, then we can achieve it. So now is the best time.
Yeah, I would agree, but I think we need to be realistic as well in terms of what we see as, how we measure success. And I think we need to understand that even small wins are wins. And if we can even attract a certain number of people back to particular regions, and we can see that as a success rather than, we didn't get the 200,000 people relocating to different, we have to see that, like, maybe 5,000 people relocating out of a city to different villages. That's a great success, and it's a good starting point. And we can learn a lot from those people. I think we also need to open our minds to take learnings from other countries as well. So there's some great initiatives happening in the Netherlands, for example. There's also some really interesting projects happening in Italy. And looking further afield than just our own country, our own small rural village, to see what learnings are available. And people love talking about themselves. So if you approach somebody saying, I see you've had success, people are so willing to tell their story. And if you tell them that you want to use their village as a case study, you can see the excitement on people's faces. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to learn from each other, but to set realistic targets about what we see as success, rather than setting yourself a target that is just going to be unachievable. But in line with Christina, I think we just need to make the decision and start now.
We need pilots, working ones.
You have to add some.
We have 4 pilots happening across Europe in partnership with Huawei at the moment.
Yeah, and a long-term approach. So really thinking in the long term, and that is benefit for those who are already living there and those who relocate, or who are locating there.
Thank you. Our time went by incredibly quickly, actually, and I would like to thank our guests for a great discussion, as well as our audience for the valuable time and attention. After the conversation, it's clear that we need to improve the infrastructure in the region, invest in education, and do our best to encourage startups to develop their activities there. And this will create value for us that we have never imagined before. And I would like to take this opportunity once again to invite everyone to register for the European Commissioner Maria Gabriel Patron Hackathon Hack Startup Village, which will be held on October 21st, 23rd. Register, offer your vision for the chosen region, and not only win a cash prize, but or gain experience, but also significantly contribute to the creation of the future vision throughout Europe. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, online viewers.